bastard. All right, everybody, we are back with another episode of The Hail Call. I'm joined today with Matt and Teddy. We kind of got some fun stuff to talk about this week. At first, we would like to let everybody know for the second week that we have the online live duck contest starting now. It is going to be an April 1st deadline for your first round entries. We're going to have payouts for the top 3 based on entry fees that we have. And we also shout out to Flashback Decoys. They are going to be donating a flashback decoy to the winner of this contest. So shout out to them. We're really excited to have them be a part of the podcast. They've been doing a great job and they make a great product. So how are you guys doing today?
Doing good.
I'm kind of wound up now. We kind of found a new topic to kind of kick things off with for this week. And I think we're all a little bit excited about it because
I don't even want to talk weather, Mike.
No, we're skipping
right
weather.
into it.
No
It's
weather,
really
no
nice
fast food, no nothing. We'll get right into it.
You can't leave out the LJS. I'm still hoping one day they'll send me like a free LJS for life. And by the time they do, the next day they'll shut her down.
Oh, well, we can all hope. I
hate you.
So do we need to plug this calling contest? We've got a few entries in a little bit, and we need to get some more. Hopefully it's going to be pretty well participated. It's a live duck. I mean, everyone should compete in it. Now, we do have a new announcement for it. The winner is going to be getting a flashback decoy.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So if that greases the wheels a little bit, gets you a little bit more enticed to enter.
I'm sorry, I can't not mention this. What is this timer that we have going on here?
That's if we have to make edits, I know what time it's going. What time
Smart.
It's you, fancy.
Smart.
Learning how to zoom.
Wow. Yeah, figured that out after we recorded last week. Anyway, great radio we got going on.
Moving on up. We got a timer going. Wow. You guys don't have to listen to us BS for too long. No, so I mean, and it's a good transition getting into this live duck contest. It's easy because there's no set routine. You can make everybody's is going to be different, so you don't have to worry about whether or not your structure is perfect. It's just sounding like live ducks, and it's going to be an easy transition working into the contest season that's going to be starting here soon. I think the next contest that I'm aware of is going to be the Mile High contest. I'm not sure if that's exactly what they call it, but it's going to be in Denver. April 11th. So, and they have a really good $2,500 payout for the goose contest. They have a live goose there as well. I think that pays $500. I think they might also have a duck contest there. I've kind of been trying to think about whether or not I want to crack the ice and maybe fly out there. We'll have to see if I can get some daycare, but details, right?
I hope you do, man. It was a good contest last year for what I was told. And, I think you should go. I mean, why not?
I'm going to try. You can fly out there. I mean, MSP is a pretty good hub. Looks like I can fly out there for like under $200. So might have to do a little bit more digging on that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that would be cool. Good luck to the guys that go out there. I hope Chance gets some, because Chance is running this one, right?
I think so. Or is involved helping them run it, I think. Yeah.
I know he's going to get some good participation and stuff like that. So,
yeah,
good contest. Like to see a lot of people attend. And is it at a show or is it just a contest? It's at a show.
I think it's at a show.
Hunt and Fish Expo. I think that's what they call it, right?
That sounds more correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to see some more of these expos host some more contests.
Shows need to make a comeback.
Well, it's funny you say that. So, from what I see, consumers and people who go to shows, like show attendance, is up right now. We did just have a pretty big show down in Texas. It has nothing to do with hunting, but the Bassmaster Classic was well attended. But look at NWTF, the Great American Outdoor Show. These different shows are they're being well attended again. I just would like to see maybe we can start dumping some money back into some events.
Right.
Hopefully, because that's a easy way to put on a calling contest.
Yeah. Well, and I think you just miss like so much of the connection between everything. Like if all these shows go away, you're pretty much forced to just look at stuff online or in a local show, in a local showroom at a sporting goods store, wherever you're at. So being able to go to a show, network with people, put your hands on new product, like have a time, go there and enjoy yourself versus like sit online and it's like, oh, this new thing released today. Well, you have no idea like what it actually is unless you can like put your hands on it, a lot of this stuff. Yeah, I would love to see a lot of these companies and different places bring shows back.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep. But you want to get right into this, Mike? Or?
Let's go. Kick it off, Ted.
I'm going to pass this one to Matt because he's got one teed up. I'm still trying to figure out where I put it. Oh, yep, found it. Yeah.
So what we're kind of looking to do is we're going to kick off a new segment. That's, what did you call it, Matt? Forum Flashback?
The Forum Flashback.
The Forum Flashback. So the refuge forums, which some of you might not even be familiar with what a forum is, but it's basically like a big chat room. A lot of it now has unfortunately transitioned over like to Facebook. So it's basically a Facebook group before Facebook was a thing. And Avery Outdoors used to have a big forum. The Refuge Forums was probably one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest. There was deadduck.com. There was, locally here we had Minnesota Waterfowler. There was like goose hunting chat. You guys probably had an East Coast one out there. I remember being in high school and college. I was probably on 6 different forums. Foils had a forum. Fowl University was a forum. There was just a ton of them. And it was just a really cool place where people could kind of connect, but it's so much easier now with Facebook. Like you look at how much easier it is to connect with people now that social media has exploded, because you kind of had to go out of your way to go. You had to go log on to the internet, go to the Refuge forums, and I'd have 6 different tabs open. You have to sign into your username at each one, and then some people, some certain dicks, not to be named, would have fake accounts with fake names that would troll people.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Even
Some
back
people.
then?
Oh,
Those
yeah.
that was original. That was huge. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's
so many good topics, but like Matt pulled up a really good one that we're going to kick off this week that was from like 20 years ago. So it's going to be really cool to see the transitions that waterfowl hunting, both the industry and calling and tactics, like what was really popular then and how it's transitioned now and what kind of changes we've seen. Because obviously there's been a lot of change in the industry. Some things have stayed the same, but just like looking back when I started getting into it was probably like 2005, 2006. Avery Outdoors was on a rapid climb to the top. And the crazy thing is in my opinion, I never saw it coming that Avery would like ever go bankrupt and sell. But that's happened with several companies like in the waterfowl industry. So many like companies and brands have been bought and sold. And it's like, I don't know how, hearing some of the numbers, and I want to say, I don't remember who it was that told me, and Teddy, maybe you have heard this, like just the Avery or the Greenhead gear, the hot buys, their original hot buy duck decoys, which was the first duck decoys I ever bought. You could go to the store and buy a dozen decoys. You could get them on sale for $25 for a dozen when I first started. Do you remember that, Ted? The original hot buys?
Yeah.
You can't even buy hot buys off of Facebook for $25 a dozen.
And they were a great decoy. They looked really good. They were reliable. And it was just a really good starter decoy. I actually still have 2 of my original hot buys that I got. My stepdad used most of them for our pond sprinkler system. He'd use it as a float for the nozzle to suck water out of, but I had luckily nabbed a couple of them that he didn't, and I kind of tried to repaint the heads on them because the green was getting all faded. So I was lucky. I still have like 2 of the original hot buys I have. But I want to say that I heard Avery sold 1,200 shipping containers a year.
I think I heard that that was on
those hot buys.
I think Fred said that on a podcast recently.
Which is, I don't even want to know how many hot buy boxes, because they weren't very big. They weren't a huge decoy. So you're probably like a maybe a 26 by 26 square box
Hmm.
had like a dozen decoys in them, maybe a little bit bigger, but it wasn't like it was this giant box. Well, you know how big a shipping container is. They probably had at least a couple hundred dozen decoys per shipping container.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, and that was just one decoy. That was just their hot buys. And back in the day, I mean, I always loved like catalogs were a big thing. I mean, and I think Max Prairie Wings maybe still sends one up, but like Cabela's had a great catalog. Final Flight had a great catalog. Max had a great catalog, and you can get them. And one thing that Avery, like they always had such good pictures. That's part of how Avery exploded. Their pro staff, one of the main duties of it was to take pictures. I mean, they exploded. So, anyways, we're getting off topic here, but it's just crazy to see like how a lot of things have worked out, and it'll be interesting to go through some of these topics because there's been a lot of changes, right? In 20 years. We're going back to when I was still in high school. So really excited, and Teddy, you as well, and probably Matt. So we're looking forward to do that. So Matt, you're going to kick us off with the first topic that's been a
Yeah.
lifelong topic of discussion.
Yeah, I think that this
Both
is probably a very good one and pretty appropriate to start with. So the way that I'm reading this forum post, it looks like it was somebody posted a Delta waterfowl article, and the article was titled "Waterfowling in America: Firm Ground or Thin Ice." And basically, the gist of the article was, where is the future of waterfowling going?
And
And
this is from April 15th,
2005.
2005.
Yep.
So almost just a hair under 20 years ago.
Right. And it's kind of cool because, like, in this article, they're kind of talking about, well, what's going on today. As the three of us are sitting here speaking, 20 years ago, they were talking about what they thought would be happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty cool. Like, I don't know how this thought came to my head while we were sitting here pre-recording and thinking about what we're going to talk about tonight, but it just I don't know, but I think it's cool to look back and now compare it and see like, well, were they right? Were they wrong? Anyway, so they break it down by flyways, but it starts off with a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service figures representing total potential adult hunters rose steadily throughout the 60s and peaked at 2.4 million hunters in 1971. So in 1971, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service figured on 2.4 million hunters. I don't have the current number in front of us today,
I'm
but
pulling that up now.
but it goes on to talk about how between 71 and 91, U.S. waterfowl hunter numbers declined to 1.14 million, a 52% loss.
Mm-hmm.
So the number of U.S. waterfowl hunters began to increase again in 92, rose up to 1.5 by the year of 2000, so a 38% increase. And in spite of the recent increase, the total numbers of U.S. waterfowl hunters remains 34% below the peak that was established in 1971. So at the time of this post in 2000, they were 34% lower. There was 34% less hunters, waterfowl hunters, than there were in 1971.
Mm-hmm.
So if we break that down into each flyway, it says that waterfowl hunter trends in each flyway are similar, but show interesting differences. So Atlantic flyway numbers declined from, wow, in 1971, uh, declined from 496,000 in 1971 to 226,000.
It's a
So,
big drop.
yeah, 54%. And then in 95, it increased to 281,000, so plus 24%. But in spite of that increase, waterfowl numbers in the Atlantic Flyway in the year of 2000 were down 43% from 1971.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That and 71 they're using as the absolute peak
yes.
numbers of all time.
Yep. And then they moved
Yeah.
to Mississippi Flyway. Waterfowl numbers peaked in 1970 at just under a million, 998,000. And then they fell by another 54% to 464,000 in 1988. Hunter numbers then increased in the Flyway by 57% to reach 730,000 in the year of 2000. And however, the numbers of waterfowl hunters in the Mississippi Flyway in 2000 is still 27% lower than in 1970.
So to compare that to the numbers today, just after a quick Google search, as of 2023, at the end of 2023, there were 913,700 active waterfowlers in the United States. And it says an 8% decrease from the previous season, and the lowest tally since 1962, which is when we figured out the count, I guess. But based on these numbers, it's a 20% decrease just from 2002, whenever this report came out.
Okay, just over 20 years ago then.
So this might be a dumb question, but when did market hunting end? Do we know the year?
I don't know off the top of my head. I want to say it was in the 60s or the 50s.
Okay, so that has nothing to do with this 1971 survey. Because I feel like if market hunting was around, there would be more waterfowl hunters.
So I was kind of looking at
yes and no.
What kind of happened in that time frame, and I would maybe suspect this has to be part of it, but up until like 1971, 1971, you were like in the peak of the Vietnam War.
Yeah. Yep.
So
a lot of
young
military age men. Yeah.
Military men. Yeah. And not to say that that's necessarily the case, but you look at the loss that our country had at that time and the availability of resources and all of those things. I'm sure that had to have some type of impact on it as well.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like having a lot of people deployed. Obviously we lost a lot of our men. And I think that there's probably also something to be said about the farming practices that started to kick in then too, which is probably my opinion, I think, in this trend of how it goes. So you look at like the 70s, that would be like when our parents were our age, roughly, or maybe a little older, right? I guess my parents are older. So like my mom and dad were born in like 55, 56. So they would have been like teenagers in 1971. So their parents were probably like around that 35, 40 years old mark. Mm-hmm. You're talking about a lot of hunters at that time. And I'm not good at like this whole classification of generations, but like our parents are part of a pretty big generation of people.
Right.
Yeah. The biggest generation.
Right. So you're talking a lot of those people being in their 30s and 40s at hunting age, that as they start to come out of hunting age, a huge portion of your population as they get older is going to start to decline, right? Naturally.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Would make sense to me.
Yeah.
You throw a big war in there, might also... I've never really heard anybody speculate on that, but I would have to think that there'd be some type of impact there, right?
No, I've never heard this topic talked about of why the number, why. I've never really heard anybody dive too deep into it and like take that point of view.
I'm just thinking, like who are you, if people that are going to either get drafted or volunteer to go to war, a lot of times are people that are already fairly familiar with firearms. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people that are probably familiar with firearms are probably out hunting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they move.
Maybe some speculation there.
Yeah.
To go back a little bit, Matt, to answer your question, market gunning started on the eastern shore of Maryland, of course,
it did,
and ended in 1918 with the Migratory Bird Treaty Act between U.S. and Canada, which ended the era of market hunting.
Okay, we were way off. Has nothing to do with our survey. Anyway. Back to the point
that Mike makes with the Vietnam and a lot of hunting aged males not being available. Yeah, absolutely. You could say.
You're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, and then that's just one effect on the overall population. That
Right.
doesn't mean anything with market trends and anything like that. Where
Correct.
a lot of times, if you look back in the '60s, the '50s, the '60s, and the '70s, there was a whole nother market that was built around waterfowl hunting just for the down. Because
Hmm.
back in those days, fur trading was huge,
Hmm.
right? Everyone wanted minks and furs and this, that, and the other. And then goose down was put into jackets, pillows, mattresses, beds. Like it was a
Hmm.
huge market, which eventually was replaced by increases in technology and just kind of,
Synthetics and
Mhm.
yeah, moved on. DuPont
hmm
invented a lot of the synthetic plastics that you see today, which you would say affected the feather market and the down market hugely. I just
hmm
saw that on TikTok the other day. What's that guy's name? He's got like probably a 500,000 followers on TikTok, and he's that old school hunter down in Louisiana. Have you seen this guy?
Dale Bougeron or whatever.
Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that. And
hmm
he's got
Bayou
six or
Beast.
seven. Yeah,
Yeah,
and he makes these old style duck calls out of like cane reeds, and
yeah.
he had like 5 or 6 bags of just duck down from the breast hanging because that's just what he did with them, and that's history and tradition of what waterfowling was for, is using all of the bird. Nowadays it's not. I don't think anyone's out there making goose down pillows or jackets. You know what I mean?
No.
And goose down was a premier jacket,
Well, I
Yeah.
right?
mean, look at how much Canada Goose jacket is now. Like the brand Canada Goose.
Right, exactly. So
Yeah.
it's pretty wild, like the transition. But to see the numbers not be that far off, 20, call it 25-ish years ago,
hmm
to
They
compare to
are
what
they
today's.
are down, but they're not seeing that 50% decrease comes back 20. You see a 50% decrease comes back 20, like where it's just plummeting.
Right.
It's still certainly going down, so then I mean also the huge topic, and Delta Waterfall puts this out as well. But Ducks Unlimited, they're huge habitat organizations, right? You look at just the changes that we've seen since the 1970s, how much more efficient farming practices have. You have the expansion of urban areas, the draining of wetlands, drain
Yeah.
tile and stuff like that. And that's something that, firsthand, I remember thinking about a long time ago, just when I first got into waterfall hunting, like going scouting like was hardly a thing. You just kind of would drive around and be like, "Oh yeah, that farm that we hunt at, they have a wheat field. We're going to go goose hunting. We're going to go hunt in that wheat field." And you would usually see some geese. There'd be some geese around, but every time that we would go out driving, my buddy Dan's dad would be like, "Ah, we used to go out here and we used to shoot the hell out of the mallards out of this." It was just like a completely dried or completely choked out cattail slough. He's like, there used to be a 3 acre pond there. It was surrounded by woods. He's like, we would walk in there. They live right, not even a quarter mile away. He's like, we would walk out there with 6 decoys, and man, we shot ducks all the time. He's like, we used to hunt divers in the beach. We'd sit behind the wood pile, me and his brother Frank and his dad, and a whole bunch of raft of bluebills would come in, like 50 of them. They would land. They'd wait for half of them to dive. They'd shoot into the flock. The other half would jump up. They'd come up from underneath the water. They'd shoot into those, and they'd have their ducks out there. I mean, and then growing up, like there was hardly any bluebills out on the lake by the time we were teenagers. We
Hmm.
were always trying to live vicariously through these stories that my buddy Dan's dad had, and how many areas now are just unhuntable.
Yeah. Well,
A
that
lot. You
the
guys maybe don't see some of that with
No,
like
we
your with your base stuff, but I'm sure your more on land stuff has changed a lot, right?
oh significantly. I mean, I could just name 5 or 6 fields that you would drive by and you could bank. I'm gonna see geese in that field. Now there's 4 or 5 houses in it. You know what I
Correct.
mean? There's one
Yeah.
right next to the high school. Like
Yep.
when you come to Easton, they put in the new Catholic school or whatever it is right next to the field at the high school. That's where all the geese would go. Not anymore, and that's
Yeah.
changed the flight pattern of the geese in that area.
Yeah, a lot of the, I mean, just here in Rochester, there was a field that used to be called Hot Corner, and all the geese would stage out there. It was a right kind of in town, but it was a cornfield that was pretty much surrounded by development. Well, now it's a Hy-Vee grocery store, and there's all kinds of there's a quick trip gas station there now. I mean, maybe 10 geese will land in the little pond that used to be there. It used to stage thousands of geese, and then we would hunt just on the outside of that. We'd wait for them to start leaving the refuge, and we would pound the geese coming out of there. I mean, there's just so many changes, and I'm sure our listeners, I'm sure for those of you listening, you could probably name a handful of spots right off the top of your head as well, where there used to be a slough, there used to be a pond, you used to be able to hunt here. I don't really understand the DNR's fascination with cattails. Like in Minnesota, it's illegal to like cut or use any cattails. Like you get fines if you remove cattails out of your beach. You're allowed like a very little amount to clear out on your beach, and they're just like almost like an invasive species. They just choke everything out.
Yeah.
Like they just grow and grow and grow, and then pretty soon the root base turns into a bog, and now you have this what used to be a lake is now getting to be a pond, and it just keeps getting smaller and smaller until there's no visible water. And
Do you guys have frag out there? Phragmitis? I'm sure you do.
Probably. I'm not I don't know, I just look at stuff and call
It's
it by
technically
whatever I want to
frag.
call it.
Like on the eastern shore, frag is an invasive species.
Sure.
And that's what the majority of our marsh is made of. Now we have different marshes where it's salt marsh versus more of a fresh marsh, but yeah, I mean we see kind of that a little bit now. Whether that's good or bad, the marshes have changed, and our marshes are actually decreasing. Not
Yep.
necessarily because of expansion of people, but just because it's eroding away from years
Sure.
and years of, either not being taken care of, not being burned effectively. As a matter of fact, I think they're getting ready to start the burning of the marshes here shortly, which is pretty cool to see.
hmm
But yeah, I mean, habitat loss for ducks is definitely and geese is definitely going to affect the migration. It's just kind of like going back to the topic at hand. The total number of duck hunters and relative numbers comparative to like the U.S. population and like what you see, they paint it to be a really bad picture. But even 20 years ago, they're still painting the same picture.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think it's as bad as what people say it is.
Right. I'd be interested to hear back from some of you guys on, so, and if we could, it'd be great if we could get a couple, of you guys from each flyway to, say like, oh, those numbers are, they were right about these numbers. And, kind of comparatively speaking, like look back at, what they were saying about these numbers 20 years ago and, take your neck of the woods and compare it, and be like, oh, well, they were right or they were wrong, or yeah, it's, just about the same. They kind of wrap up the article by they said the good news is that the number of U.S. waterfowl hunters in each flyway began to climb again in the 80s and 90s, and growth seems to have stopped in the Pacific flyway, but numbers were still moving upwards in the Atlantic, Mississippi, and Central flyways in the year of 2000. So is this an optimistic blip on a long-term downward trend, or does it represent a rekindled interest in waterfowl hunting and a truly sustainable growth trend in hunter numbers? That's an interesting point. What do you guys think? I mean, in 2000, was that reflective of today, or are we still, not far enough out yet, and we're still kind of seeing the same thing?
All right, let me ask you a question. What do you think the average age of a duck hunter or a goose hunter is?
Right now,
I
Yeah.
would say probably 21.
I was gonna say like 21 to 26, but yeah, I mean, right in there. Yeah, I definitely think it's a lot
The average
younger than
age
it
of all
probably was.
waterfowlers I'm sorry, maybe I'm changing the question, but the average age of all waterfowlers, you guys are saying it's 21 to 26?
I think
Yeah,
that makes up
I
a
would say that,
big bulk of it.
yes, I would say that probably the majority of waterfowl hunters fall in between that range.
A
That would be
sub 28 years old, I would say.
yeah, that would be my guess.
The average age of waterfowlers across the United States is 49.7.
I never would have guessed that. Wow.
Well,
I mean, there are a lot of old timers that are still in it. I mean, I shouldn't say that 49-year-olds or 50-year-olds are old timers, but like I just,
The
So I
most
think
common age group for waterfowl hunters is 50s and 60s. Which, what does that mean? Why do you think we're seeing? I mean, as people get older, they exit the hobbies that they no longer can not only physically do but don't want to do.
right.
And as our generations, as that generation of that's my dad's generation, right?
Hmm. Yep,
Like those people are going to unfortunately start aging out of waterfowl hunting,
for sure.
and that's going to cause license numbers to go down and hunters to go down, and it's an older man's sport, to be honest, because unless you have some sort of funds available, it's an expensive sport.
So do you think, and I think if you polled a lot of people that were probably our age, now I'm 35, almost 36. Teddy, you're 36 now, almost 37. Matt, you're how old?
27.
27. And I think we all guessed considerably less of an age group. Do you think that younger generation is just making a lot more noise? And
Yes.
that's what's
Yeah, and
causing
I
us to
think
look that way. Like they're probably making up a much larger portion of the market.
They're
right.
more visible.
I
They're
Yeah.
more
think that
visible.
yes, I think that that is maybe the reason that we said that was because all of these brands that we see on social media, that is the demographic that they're targeting.
For sure.
So they're the ones that are making the most noise.
Now I can also see, and I think it changes based on like your location, right? So in Minnesota, it seems like there's a lot of younger guys. And like, you go out to the river on a Tuesday morning and the boat ramp is full. There's not a lot of 50, 60-year-old guys that are bringing that average age up.
What do
There
you
are
think
there
the
are
average
some.
age of first time hunters is?
Ooh,
I would say probably about the same.
I'm gonna go high. I'm gonna say 19 or 20.
It's 20 years old.
Yeah, I was saying the same as my
College.
guest. Yeah.
You're
That's
kind
when
of
I
more
started hunting.
independent.
That's when I started waterfowl hunting was my sophomore year of college.
Now, it comes with a standard deviation of 12 and a half years. So that means,
So you could go on 6 years on either side.
well, you got to go 12 and a half years on either side.
I mean, when I think first time hunter, I would say like sub 16 years old. However, I think with this downward trend, the availability of older people that are taking young people out, I think is decreasing unless you have a dad taking out his kids.
Yep.
There's a lot of kids whose parents don't hunt. So now you're trying to find somebody else, a family member, friend from church, or somebody that hunts that's going to take them out and mentor them. Yeah, I could see it being a little bit older. And maybe once you get to be 20, those people that have grown up with it in their household are now taking out their college friends, high school friends, college friends, stuff like that.
Yeah, I just think that the baby boomer impact on the waterfowl numbers, especially since we read this post from 2002 or whenever it was posted, and then you look at some of the facts of these average age hunters. I mean, anybody in that generation, call it 1950 to 1970, they're going to be or are aging out of the sport,
Hmm.
which is causing a significant decline in waterfowl hunting numbers.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I would love to see like what percentage of these hunters are going to be considered, let's call it 35 plus and under. And is that number of 35 plus and under hunters increasing? Because,
Right.
I feel like
It
it
said in that
is.
it said in that article too, like kind of toward the beginning, they were talking about our if the I think maybe it was one of the people that replied. Somebody right here. So like the second post, this guy said a few random thoughts. He said if the average age of duck hunters is increasing, the sport is doomed.
Yeah.
So how do you interpret that? Kind of think that feeds right into your point, Ted, that if the average age is decreasing, that means that you're getting less young people out to drop that average age. And that as that starts to trend upward, your average age, I mean, to be honest, I don't know. I mean, I know some people that are in their 40s that still waterfowl hunt, but I think it really has to taper off from there. Like I just don't see a lot of people that are like my parents' age. Like I look at my buddy and like their dads used to be huge hunters, used to go to Canada back in the 80s before like, when you could just go up there and freelance and do all this stuff. So much has changed. Well, a lot of those people that are in their 60s, they're now grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
So unless they're taking their grandkids out, but then you look at like, I mean, there's always that saying too, people were built different back in the day, right? Now, whether like you hear stories of guys where it's like, I try to load a duck boat onto a trailer or into the back of a truck, and it's like me and my buddy are blowing an O-ring trying to get this old duck boat into the back of a truck.
Yeah.
And his dad's like, I don't know why the hell it's taking you guys so long to get this thing loaded. I used to throw that on top of the truck by myself. You know what I mean? And I'm sure you guys have heard that.
Yeah.
A lot of our listeners, that
Back
comparison.
in my day when I paved the road you guys are walking down. Yeah.
That's right. Now, whether or not that's over embellished a little bit, I mean, could be true, but those guys are not loading up duck boats anymore.
No.
Right.
They're not tromping through the cattail swamps like they used to. They're kind of over and done with it. And maybe they'll go out, like the older guys that I take out, like they're coming out snow goose hunting if the weather is looking like it's going to be pretty decent. And even then, you kind of have to be a little bit accommodating, because they're not going to go lay out on a backboard from dark to dark when it's blowing 30 miles an hour and it's 40 degrees with a real feel of 19.
Right.
Like, yep. And I don't blame them, because there's a lot of days we kind of rate our days when we snow goose hunt. For all of our hunts, really, what percentage of the day sucks, right?
Yeah.
If it's because some days, like especially when you're snow goose hunting, there's a lot of like 90% days where 90% of the time it's terrible and you're miserable. But that 10% of the day that's good is really good.
It's good,
So it makes
yeah.
it worth it. And once you start getting to like down into like that 20, 30% days, that's when you're shooting the hell out of them. The weather's nice, like you're having an unbelievable time. And those days are few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I would like to think that I've kind of thought about it. It's like, oh man, we're in our 30s now. We go out snow goose hunting. We sleep in the trailer. We're right there. We have a great time. Big fun. Are we going to be doing that when we're 45? Or are we going to be like, we're fucking 45 years old and there's
what the fuck
four
are we doing
guys
out here?
sleeping in this trailer? You know what I mean? Like, at what point are you like, we're adults, we can just go do whatever? But
yeah, I'll just go get a hotel room with a bed, and I mean, like,
A shower. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think it's a natural progression of a hunter ttout, because when you're young, you're learning, and like they got the 5 stages of hunters, and then
we'd go sleep in the blind. I'll never go sleep in a layout blind out on a sandbar in a field for a goose ever again in my life.
Just not that hungry. Yeah, I mean, I'm just not. No,
I'm not that mad at them anymore.
To be honest, I mean, if it's a little bit more than a drizzle, I'm out. You know what I mean? I don't need to be sitting in 40-degree weather where it's raining, and that's just miserable.
That's one of my biggest things. Anybody that knows me knows I hate wet clothes more than anything.
Yeah,
I don't like going out in the rain. It has to be the best hunting I've ever seen in my life to justify that.
Yeah, like you have to have. Yeah, I mean, it seems like you've got. Okay, so the five stages of a hunter. It's a shooter where all you want to do is pull the trigger, right? Mm-hmm. And like, I don't think age necessarily applies to the stage that you're in.
I'm still kind of in that stage sometimes.
Where you just want to pull the trigger? Well, you're a snow goose hunter. Of course you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky.
Then
Miss
you're
100%.
Then you're limiting out. You're in the limiting out stage. Then you're in the trophy stage, the method stage, and then the sportsman stage.
Mm.
And like, I mean,
where do you think you are, Ted?
I think I'm in the method stage.
Like where you're obsessed with what you're doing and
how you're doing,
trying to perfect it.
Yep.
I would say I'm in between. I just look at like the deer hunting side of it. I think I'm in between the trophy and the method stage. I would say both of those are very close.
Yeah, I think like
how you're doing it, and then focusing on
Yeah, I mean, to
especially
put it in
for
like,
deer hunting.
yeah, I mean, for turkey hunting terms, right? It's like, all right, I don't want to go and just shoot the hell out of them. You know, I don't want to reap them. I want to go and actually experience the hunt, the
Yes,
morning, like chase them. Like,
that's a
yeah,
good
that's
good
more of a
analogy.
method stage of hunter. Like,
Would you say
you
you're
know,
in that stage across all hunting, Teddy?
yeah, I do,
Yeah.
and I think it's like I shouldn't be in that stage for turkey hunting because I'm so new to it. But that's
Right.
kind of, like I wanted to go and kill a bird on public land by myself in
Right.
that method, right?
Hmm.
All of
Yep.
last year.
Right.
I
I
could
think
have
I'm in
called
that.
somebody and just
Yeah.
shot one in the face real quick.
I think I'm in
Yeah.
that stage with turkeys. Like I want to do it and I want to like it's kind of like a pride thing. Like I want to do it and like I have a certain like roadmap in my head of how I want to do it.
Yeah,
And
Hmm.
like you said, you can pay somebody and I can go shoot a turkey.
yeah,
Or we sit in a Corey like like Corey says, you can sit in a tent or you can
Hmm.
crawl up on a turkey and you can probably kill one, but it's not. I don't know, it's like these people
It's
that
not the
like
method that you want to do it.
yeah,
right.
and it's like I don't see this is kind of getting off topic too, but like jump shooting or like running up hopping out of the truck and shooting something up. There's
Hmm.
like there's no fun in that to me. Like
Yeah,
that's not that's not like that's killing. That's not hunting.
I
Yeah,
think you see
the
that
limiting
transition
out stage where you see a lot of the limiting out stage on social media right now.
for sure.
Piles
Well,
and smiles,
and
baby. That's
everywhere you go, like so we go to a lot of contests and like you sit in the bullpen and you have a lot of people in a lot of different stages of their hunting career. And what is the majority of it? You have your guys that have been doing it a long time are not talking about anything that has to probably even do with hunting.
yeah,
And you have the guys that are new to it all have their phones out, check out this pile. Yeah, we'll
validation, baby.
check out this pile. We'll check out this pile. And it's like, and I mean, and that's great. It's great to see people that are as enthusiastic as we used to be about it because we need that, right? Circling back to our hunter numbers, you need to have people that are enthusiastic, that are getting into the sport and sticking with it,
Hmm.
or else it all goes away. And that's true with all types of sports.
Yeah.
I think your main sports like your football, your baseball, like that's obviously not going to go anywhere.
Have you ever
Your hunting and stuff, I think that makes a big change though.
have you ever been like? Do you hunt with somebody on? Have you ever hunted with somebody that's like mastered the sportsman stage where it's all about the experience?
Hmm. What do you think that looks like?
Yeah,
So,
paint that picture. Like what
so
does that person look like?
the way I describe it, I've got one person in mind specifically, but I won't name him by name, right? But let's just say every time he calls me to ask me to go hunting, I will call out of work to go because not only
Hmm.
is it good, everything from A to Z, I's dotted, T's crossed, everything's thought of. Like you're gonna kill him too. It's just everything's perfect. So
Knows his shit and
like
yeah,
you're there a perfect 10 minutes early, right? Decoys are put out perfectly. There's no tangles in any of the rig, no matter what water depth that you're hunting in. He's got everything from snacks, coffee. He's got a stove cooking. He's got the timing of the birds down. Like he's got the conditions that are going to be right. He knows when to go, when not to go. Like everything, the blinds are perfect. They're perfectly brushed. The ducks can't see you, but you can see. Like it's everything is just right on. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like that guy has got 20, 30, 40 years of experience and likes to
He's steps
go.
ahead.
Yeah, he's multiple steps ahead of everything that you could possibly.
He's
I don't
playing
think
chess
yeah.
when most people are playing
I
checkers.
don't think that I have
Yeah,
ever
I call it
hunted
a
with
game.
somebody. Yeah, I don't think I've ever hunted with somebody like that. I've fished with somebody that's like that, but I don't think I've ever hunted with somebody like that.
The
Yeah,
closest I would say would be like hunting with Trinan.
yeah,
And some days, I mean, not to like brag, I think I fit that bill a little bit because
hmm
like me and my buddy Travis will go out and like we're consumed by hunting and we've grown up hunting together, just grinding it out, the good days, the bad days. I think people get their little group and then like when my buddy Dan and his dad and them come out, we're already out there. We already have everything set up. Everything is thought of. Everything's ready to go. And it's like, all right, you guys are just kind of showing up and pulling your gun out of the case and loading it up and here we go.
yeah.
And we shoot some birds. But yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of people like that because, and I think you could say that that trend, that person at some point is kind of a unicorn to stick with it for so long.
You learn so much. If you
Yeah.
find that one person, you learn so much.
I think I've fallen into by dumb luck, I every once in a while you think of like some of your best hunts. You could probably call yourself that person like one day,
Hmm.
at least one day, you fell into that role.
Most of the time, my best all-time hunts are with this person.
Right.
Okay.
Like, that's kind of what I mean. You know what I mean? Like, and certain people are just, there's also certain guys that are on different levels. Like, they're just, everything is completely different with different hunters.
For sure.
Or one guy, you think, oh man, like, that's the way he packs his boat, the way he puts out his decoys, the way his dog works, the way he blows calls, everything. Like, you think he thinks, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. You see that? Yeah, that's A game right there. And you're like, no, buddy, that's C plus, maybe best. Good luck. And then you you fall into these groups where people are trying to get to that same level. I mean, I know I'm nowhere. I'm not. I've come close a couple of times to being completely dialed in, but I always forget like that one thing. Like, I've never had a hunt where I haven't forgotten one thing. It might be minor, like, I forgot a soda, or I forgot water for the dog, or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just see less and less people in that sportsman stage to teach the guys who are in the shooter and the limiting out stage, like, how it's done, so they can transition into that next stage. So now we're seeing a flood of people on the Instagrams and the social medias in this piles and smiles bullshit.
Yeah. And I think, and this was another topic that you had mentioned, Teddy, that maybe we'll dive into next week. There was a list that came out of the top, what would you say it was, the top 25 waterfowl hunters?
Yeah, this stupid
Which
list.
I don't really know how this list is, but what I was going to say is you look at like some of the biggest names in the industry, guys that have been around for a long time, your Mark and Terry Drury, you have like Lakoskis, you have your Fred Zinks and stuff like that. And I think every industry probably has these people, like your biggest name. Those are probably your A-listers, like you were talking about, Ted. The people that are so many steps ahead because they've seen so much, they've done so much. They're just like on another level. They have thought about and forgotten so much more than so many people will ever truly know. Like, those are the people you need to learn from. And that's like kind of what got this podcast started, was trying to bring to light these people that have paved the way for people like us who have found success in the waterfowl industry, but trying to like show people now with social media taking this turn where you have all of these grip and grin guys, these new hunters, these, piles and smiles people that don't know a lot, but they have the ability to post everything everywhere. Like, your education level across the industry seems like it's going down.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it could go back to those stages of a hunter, but you just look. I don't think it's necessarily that. I mean, I think people were celebrating the limiting out, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we're validating people in that stage, and not progressing them to move on, But then
a lot of people miss the point. I tell my guys I hunt with all the time, pictures don't tell the story.
Yeah.
You see these guys that it's springtime. You see it a lot in the spring. Snow geese are tough to hunt. Yeah, you can shoot 50 snow geese in a day by pounding into every flock at 100 yards with 10 guys with 10 round tubes and scratching out 4 a flock. And you do that all day. Well, yeah, you got a pile of birds, and everybody's like, oh man, those guys really got into them. Well, how did they get into them?
Right. They were grinding it out.
They shot 12 cases of shells to get 50 birds. Like, yeah, they have a pile, but they didn't really do it that great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should bring this back up to our next guest and be like, all right, what stage do you think you're in?
Yeah,
for sure.
That'd be good.
Because to me, it's the difference between finishing ducks, right? Now, we blame it on us being callers, but to me, it's the difference between finishing ducks and finishing geese in your decoys versus sky busting them.
For sure.
But, the difference between all right, they got their feet out to fuck it, try 'em,
Yep.
right? And there's a lot of that fuck it, try 'em out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to get that pile. But
Yeah.
I think that's a good point to end it on. We have a lot of stuff here to talk about, and I think this topic is going to be interesting to go over because, just to see what was happening 20 years ago. It's cool that we have this resource, and I'm glad they still have all that information.
I want
out
to
there.
I want to wrap it up by just reading the last paragraph here. I think it ends it on a interesting note and leaves a lot of room for you guys to give us some comments and opinions. So the last paragraph of this article and forum post reads, the U.S. figures beg the question, what will happen to our waterfowling heritage when drought, unanticipated declines in duck population, or loss of CRP reduces duck populations and hunting opportunity in the future? If the numbers of U.S. hunters are closely tied to the numbers of ducks and hunting opportunity, the scarcity of ducks reported by hunters in 2001 and the ominous threat of drought on the breeding habitat this spring does not bode well for continuing recent growth in waterfowl hunter numbers. Without doubt, more ducks in the sky is critical to continue the recovery of America's waterfowling heritage. On the other hand, experiences in Canada and long-term trends in the U.S. waterfowl hunting numbers suggest it may take more than ducks to conserve America's waterfowl hunting heritage in the long run. That was a mouthful, but I think that ends it on an interesting point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, guys, let us know what your thoughts are, what you've seen, and ask some of your friends and ask some of your parents and people that that have waterfowl hunted and kind of get their thoughts and let us know, because I think that it obviously isn't a simple topic to talk about. There's obviously a lot of ideas. There's a lot of different ways you can spin this topic and, point different fingers at different problems and things like that. But let us know your thoughts. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you guys hit up this online duck contest that's going right now. Thanks for listening to another episode of The Hail Call.